Hey everyone, welcome to episode 140 of the Ceres Podcast. In this episode, I talk to current Fish and Chip of the Year winner, Geoff Whitehead from Whiteheads in Hornsey. I say current, he's got about a month left. We've been planning to record this episode for a while, but as you know, things get away from us all. And Geoff's been really busy dealing with customers, promoting the business and promoting the industry. And crucially, which we'll hear about in this podcast, is reinvesting in his business. We find out about Geoff's history and, more importantly, what motivates him today, how he manages and motivates his team, but also his thoughts for the future. Our product focus for this episode of the Ceres Podcast is pre-dust solutions. The Ceres pre-dust number 1 and pre-dust number 2 are the perfect pre-dust for frying. For years, we've been making this on a small batch basis, but due to popular demand for about a year now, we've been making it for everybody. Why use the pre-dust, you say? Well, because of increased oil life, superior batter pickup, less blow-off, seasoning the fish from inside, which is much nicer than the outside. Basically, you will increase sales because people love what they eat. People come out because they want flavour and they don't want a batter that's been blown off. Pre-dust number 1 is heat-treated salt and heat-treated rice starch, aggressively blended together and hermetically sealed in 1 kilo bags to keep the pre-dust in pristine condition. And pre-dust number 2 is heat-treated salt, heat-treated rice starch with a twist of Madagascan white pepper, also aggressively blended, hermetically sealed in 1 kilo bags, again to keep it in pristine condition. Get your pre-dust and all our other Ceres products today with free shipping at ceres.shop. We love supporting your business with our products, but we also enjoy bringing you the news affecting the hospitality industry. Today, we have uploaded new articles to our website. I'll just run through some of the articles that have been uploaded today. McDonald's targets unprecedented growth, 10,000 new stores by 2027. A manslaughter investigation launched after dairy allergic woman dies after eating a vegan tiramisu made with milk. Another horrendous story. Flatiron Steakhouse carving a path to nationwide growth. Revitalising fast food, how Burger King is flipping the script with their reclaim to flame. I wanted to say fame. So read these articles today at ceres.shop/blog. Is there anyone you think we should be talking to on the Ceres podcast? Anyone doing something really interesting? If that's a big yes, then let me know at Stelios at worldofceres.com. If you want to keep in the loop with what we're doing at Ceres, then you should be following us on all social media channels. But to get information delivered to your inbox with special offers, you should be joining our mailing list. And to be clear, the only place you will see special offers is on our mailing list. The link will be in the episode show notes. Be sure to let us know what you think of this episode with Geoff. Geoff, welcome to the Ceres Podcast, mate.
Good morning. Are we well?
I am. How are you?
Yeah, fantastic. Still floating on cloud 9, funnily enough. I can't believe how fast this year's gone. It's just flown by. It's been an absolutely crazy, crazy year. I can actually remember when I'm sat at the table, just about to announce the winner, and the one thing that sticks in my mind is somebody's life is about to change. Oh, wow. Oh, it certainly does. It changes beyond belief, and it's been a crazy, crazy year, and I can't believe we've only got 6 weeks left. I'm going to be actually envious handing that trophy back for the next winner, because I've loved every minute of it. It's been amazing. Met an awful lot of wonderful people along the way. I've learned an awful lot. I can't say it's been challenging. Yes, in certain aspects, but not in others. But the year itself has been wonderful. I've met an amazing amount of people that are all singing from the same hymn sheet as me. They all want to make sure and ensure that this industry is being taken to another level. It's been wonderful. Great experience.
Fantastic. So you recommend everybody to enter and get stuck in then?
It's a good question, because at the end of the day, everybody, when it comes to business, everybody wants something different. We all the same achievement, obviously, is finances. When somebody asks me this, I always say the same thing. When it comes to business, you don't compromise on quality. This goes right across every single sector. As soon as you compromise on quality, it doesn't take care of itself. If you stick to the best of what you can do, what you can be, and all of your, when it comes to our industry, ingredients, if you get the best, the business will take care of itself, and so will the finances. Been doing this a long time, 27 years it is in March, and I stuck to my guns right from the very beginning. Do not put out rubbish. If it's not right, you don't sell it. If it doesn't look right, you don't sell it. And I've always stuck to the same thing. The unfortunate side of the hospitality industry is the human effect. And as soon as you put humans into it, which we need, obviously, you're going to get errors. If you don't learn from your errors, then more fool you. I don't want to make the errors in the first place. So you put out the best quality food you can. And if something isn't right, we get it rectified. At the end of the day, especially with what's going off out there in this world, people pay good money, and you've got to get it rectified if there is a problem. No issue with that, but you don't compromise on quality. Never, never, ever. Passionate about that. As soon as you start compromising, it'll hit you at the till. No question about it.
I'm going to make a note on that, because I want to come back to that bit a bit later on. What I'd like to know first is, how did you get here today?
I actually grew up in Rotherham, moved to Hornsey when I was 12. Still, my best friends still live over there. I visit them an awful lot. My grandfather passed away, and my father wanted to... We had a fish and chip shop in Rotherham. My mother and father turned it from a fruit and vegetable shop, and they turned it into a fish and chip shop, having done a little bit of research. This is 1980. Did a bit of research. There was very few shops around, so they turned a fruit and vegetable shop into a fish and chip shop. Fast forward to 18 months later, they sold it, and my grandfather died. And they bought a property in Hornsey, and it was an old travel agent's, and they turned it into another fish and chip shop. So I've actually grown up in and around business anyway. My grandparents had 5 bakeries in Rotherham. Obviously went around cashing up with my dad and my mum when the time came. But when we moved to Hornsey, that's when I actually started getting involved in fish and chips. I was 13 at the time. I'd be the rumbling boy, do all the potatoes, eye them, chip them, prepare them, and it just went on from there, really. But then when I finally left school, my father had actually sold the shop and bought fishing boats. So here we go again, fish still in my blood. So I ended up, my father, you listen to your father, leave school, son, come and work for me. I'll make sure you earn plenty of money, which was not the case. So I ended up going to sea for 2 or 3 years, fishing with my brother and my father. And although I liked doing that, there was something missing. I can remember coming back from Bridlington Harbour one day, and a light bulb moment come on. I was 18. I was in the back of his Vauxhall Cavalier, bright red, just had it resprayed. Coming back from Bridlington, been at sea all day. My brother and my father having an argument about where we should go and what we should do. And the light bulb come on. I can do better than this. I can run my own business. I know I can. I can certainly do it a lot better than what they can. And I knew it. And I was at 18 years of age going through Skipsea in the back of a Vauxhall Cavalier. And it was as clear as it today as it was then, all those years ago. Fast forward, here we are. It's number 1 in the country. What can I say? I just had a light bulb moment, and it was amazing. But the story behind all of this, and it's funny, but it's not funny. My father was actually having an affair with a woman at the time, and we didn't know any of this. My father was social, to say the least. He'd go out every weekend, all the rest of it. My mother would stay at home with us. He'd be out drinking. He met this woman in Sheffield, and we never knew any of it. And when my grandfather died, he used it as an excuse to move over to be closer to his mother, which was not the case. It was so he could be closer to his girlfriend, because his girlfriend actually lived in Bridlington. And we didn't find this out until he had his first heart attack. So it was quite funny, really. But it's not funny, because at the end of the day, it's family, isn't it? And family comes first.
How does that change you? How does it motivate you? How does it make you zone in on what you want to do?
There's options in life, and those options are you either get cracked on or you don't. Bearing in mind, my father was my hero. Everything he did, I wanted to do and do better. He was my driving force initially. When everything, as I was growing up and my mental capacity was growing, he was the one person I looked up to to show me the way I needed to go. And it worked. However, when you find out that your hero is not doing what he's supposed to be doing, this is why I'm saying about choices. You either regress or you get pushed on. And I thought, no, I'm going to show him. And I'm going to show him that I can do things a lot better than he can. And my driving force was initially was him. However, and I know we can come back to this, my main driving force came through for where I've got to right now at this particular stage in life has come from my competitor, and I won't mention any names. I went to work for my competitor when I was in my early 20s, and the way they spoke to you, the way they ran a business, it was just bewildering. I saw all this money coming in. Big place. So all this money coming in, it was coming in a manner of you can't possibly justify watching all this money coming in, knowing full well your hygiene is not very good. The way you speak to people isn't very good. And I always said to myself, if ever I get the chance to run my own business, I am never, ever going to speak to people in that manner, and I'm not going to make money. Primary motive. They were my main driving force. My father passed away years ago, 15 years ago now, but in the meantime, they were my main driving force of how not to run a business and how to go in a different direction. And I used it. I don't like looking back. I only like looking forward. There's no point looking back. There's nothing you can do about it. The only thing you can do correctly is watch, listen and learn, and then make sure that as you're moving forward, you don't make the same errors. And I don't like to look back. It's not the way to go in business. You always look to the future. Make sure in that you do things in the right manner. And that's what I've done.
You could possibly look back to learn from mistakes and educate yourself a little bit on the future, but you can't drag the past around like an anchor. That's something you can't do.
The way you're brought up, the way your parents bring you up has a massive impact on you. Some of my family members have used it as a negative, and that's not the way to do it. I am the youngest of 4, and I watched my siblings grow up, and I watched them make the mistakes. I'd like to think I'm quite smart. I'd like to think so. I'm not the most intelligent person around, but I'm certainly I'm business smart. There's no question about that. But I watched them make an awful lot of errors throughout their lives. Didn't want to make the same errors, so I thought, right, okay, let's learn from what they're doing. My family members, some of them, yeah, they look in the past all the time, and I don't work like that. Don't want to work like that. It motivates me to make sure I do not create errors, and because of ultimately, it's going to affect you somewhere down the line. It's like a farmer. You sow the seed. What's the ultimate outcome? You see the crop grow, and you end up with a good yield. It's no different in life. Make sure that when you're sowing your future, the final outcome is that you get a very good crop coming through. It's no different. That's just life. I'm 55 years of age and I've never changed. I've never wavered, and I have no intention until the day I'm buried. That's how I will always be. And for people listening, I would say the same. Don't look back. Always look forward. And you will ultimately, failure will happen at some stage, but you learn from it. You don't let it define you, and you learn from it. And that's what all I've done. As I was growing up, I was reasonably good at football. Unfortunately, damaged my back. Football finished. I didn't look in the past. It took me 2 years to get over that, because ultimately us men and women are passionate. If we play football, we're passionate about it. It took me 2 years to get over that, but I didn't look back. Always use the same philosophy. Always look forward. Always. Don't waver from what you think is correct. And I never have, and I never will.
It's good to have a life philosophy and a business philosophy, because otherwise, what rules have you got? And we live in a world of abundance. You could easily fall off the track. And I think more than ever, we've got humans, especially, there's so many things that can send you off the rails now.
Yes, too many.
Too many. Everything at our fingertips. And you think there is a response to everything that you do. You mentioned that you played football, and now you don't play football, but you do more coaching.
When I was growing up, I started playing football for Hornsey Town at the age of 14. I was a reasonably good player. Times have changed. Obviously, now you see all these academies. When I was playing, it was, and especially if you wanted to become a professional, it was under 16s. So they'd bring you in under the 15s, under 16s, massive jump to under 19s. It's not like that any longer. And in some respects, society as a whole is no longer that way. Everything is made an awful lot easier for you. So progress from then to now is easier. That being said, I started playing football at the age of 14 for Hornsey Town. Barring a 5-year spell after damaging my back, I've always been involved in the club. I started playing again when I was 27, which I shouldn't have done really, because now my body's paying the ultimate price: knees, back, hip, take your pick. I played up until I was 38, too long, but I started managing when I was about 30. I'm 55 now. Barring 1 year, I've managed for the last 18 months. I've managed the club and the particular team I'm managing for the last 23, 24 years. I'm heavily involved. I'm the president, I'm the coach, I'm the manager. I do the food, I sponsor it, I do the pitch. Take your pick. I do it all. And I'm very passionate about it.
How do you juggle all of that with a successful business at the same time?
Ask the wife. She's the ultimate. She's the most patient person I've ever come across. She knows full well that obviously running a business of this size, you need leisure time. And my only leisure time is football. It's not professional football, it's local football. I give everything to either work or play. And the play is obviously football. And she's been very patient with me over the years. She understands it's a release for me. The amount of phone calls I get while I'm doing the pitch, for example. I'm sat on the grass cutter, cutting away, headphones on, switch off. Doesn't matter what's going off around that. It's all, you can just feel all your stress just fade away. It's a pleasure to do, because where we are, it's a beautiful place. There's nothing better on a Saturday afternoon than having a game of football, sunshine, play football, go back to the clubhouse with a beer in your hand watching a game of cricket. Just brilliant. And that's how I unwind and relax. And it de-stresses me, because obviously, as we all know, works that can be very stressful. And even more so when you're in the particular position I'm in at the moment, it's very stressful. And that's my release. I love what I do, both work and play. I don't want to change anything. I love it. I'm heavily involved, and I can't see it ever changing.
How does this help you manage people that you work with?
Hand in hand. When I'm given a team talk, we have monthly staff meetings. I use both the staff meetings and the team talks, and I mix them. Times have changed. This screaming and shouting malarkey doesn't work. I was listening to one of your podcasts the other day, and it was with Mark Petru, and he was actually touching on this point. You have to mix the two. Some people respond differently to others. Some people need an arm around the shoulder. Some people need a louder voice. If you can interchange, which is what I do at football and at work, it works. Not always for everybody, but it works for me. Those days of screaming and shouting are over. People don't respond to it. And more importantly, at football, because times have changed. Why would I want to work, especially in a workplace, and or play football for somebody that's screaming and shouting at me? It's archaic. No need for it. You don't need to do it. Everything is about mannerisms, and as long as you talk to people in the right manner, you get the right response back. And football especially is no different. It's no different from work. I can remember one particular game about 10 years ago, and I'm screaming and shouting at the referee, veins sticking out my neck, and I could feel my chest getting tighter. And I thought to myself, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Because if I'm doing it at football, I'm most definitely doing it at work. At that very moment in time, I thought, this is stopping. And I did. I have never raised my voice since. Don't see the point. And I also don't do it at work. It's just negative.
If you're screaming at your staff, they're not going to do what you want for very long, are they?
Throughout all the interviews that I've read in all the magazines of the industry, I have picked up an awful lot, and I don't want to be able to, or I want to be able to leave my guys knowing full well that I'm not reading the same thing. Staff run. I don't want my place to be staff run. I want it's personal. I treat most of them as family. They get paid very well. They get a lot of treats, for want of a better word. I'm not going to say bonuses. We go out a lot, and I want to make sure that the guys that work for me understand how I am, I understand how they are, and I get the best out of them. I had a particular discussion with someone about 4 weeks ago about Christmas bonuses. Because we've won the award, I've upped the bonuses for my guys, and the response I got back was pretty negative. You shouldn't be paying them that amount of money. Well, we've just won an award. We've got the creme de la creme of the awards. What do you want me to do? I'm not going to mention how much it was, because it was quite a significant amount. I am not a greedy person, because ultimately money is what we do it for, is money. I wanted these guys to understand how much I appreciate them, but she didn't agree with me, because she thought that they would then start extracting the mickey out of me. They don't work like that. I've had these guys around me for the last 16, 17 years. They know how to operate. They know what I want. and I know I can leave them and come back and everything is how it should be. And that, between the way you speak to people, the way you treat people, and obviously then provide them with the bonuses that ultimately they should be getting anyway, because they give you blood, sweat and tears for me. And I'm sure the guys out there who are listening to this should nod in the head saying, yeah, my guys, they give me everything, so I want to reward them. And in doing so, you build up a bond, a relationship.
The fact is, staff do come to work to earn money to then also pay their bills. People sort of don't realise that if the remuneration's not there, forget the bonuses for a moment, but if the everyday wage isn't there, they're not going to be overly excited about coming into work. You know, they're going to be looking elsewhere, and the amount of effort they give you is probably going to be sort of parallel to what you pay them. And there is that old British saying, pay peanuts, get monkeys.
Exactly. I have 3 levels of staff. My main core, I'll back up. Let's not fool ourselves. You're always going to get somebody who works for you that will only give minimal effort. That's just part and parcel of it. It doesn't matter what you're doing, whether it's in this industry or the financial sector. You're always going to get somebody that'll turn up 1 minute before work and leave bang on time. While they're there, put minimal effort in. Let's not fool ourselves. That's what happens. I have a main core of guys. I have 3 levels. A main core of guys that are very, very well looked after because they look after me. Without them, I don't have a business. The second level, my school, college, uni guys, they're with me for about 7 or 8 years. So school, then college, then uni, then post-uni, until they move on and to the careers that they've actually studied for. And then you get your pot washers of 15, 16. They're only there for pocket money. That's all they're there for. However, I still do not pay minimum wage when it comes to those guys. I had a meeting with the council about 6 or 7 years ago, and I was quite shocked about this. Under 16s don't get paid holiday. I was shocked. And I thought, well, they're part of my team. Why would I not give them holiday pay? The actual discussion we were having, it got a little bit heated because I was quite miffed at that. When you bring guys in, you should be paying them holiday pay. Why wouldn't you? Just because they're underage. Until you hit 16, you don't get paid holiday pay. Well, I'm sorry, but whoever wrote the rules needs to get back and rewrite them. They're entitled to, in my opinion, they're entitled to holiday pay. Without them, the entire system, the wheel comes to a grinding halt. They're in pot wash. Those pots don't get washed. And especially at the pace we require, if those pots don't get washed, it all comes to a grinding halt. We're waiting for things. And then it backs up, goes to the takeaway. We can't get the food out quick enough. The fish can't get fried fast enough because we're waiting on them guys. People may disagree. Obviously, that's why we're here, to discuss things. We can't always agree on certain opinions, but as far as I'm concerned, these under 15s get paid holiday pay. End of story.
How many staff do you employ now? And what's sort of the split, like in terms of how you just gave me those examples? What's sort of the split?
I've got 19 full-time. Let me think about this now, because you put me on the spot. I've got 9 that are in the core bunch. I've got 10 that are at school, college and uni, and the rest are made up of, obviously, all the cleaners, pot washers and all the rest of it that goes in between. I don't treat anybody any different. The one thing I do like to do when these guys come in is like, we need routine in life. We also need routine at work. And without the routine, I like to make sure these guys have a routine and they stick to it religiously. That's what life is. We get up in the morning, we brush our teeth, have a wash, go to school, go to work, whatever. It's all about routine. And when I get these youngsters in, it's a bit of a shock to their system because obviously we're really busy. Even before the award, we were really busy, but they don't understand the concept of routine, and I want to give them that. When they finally do leave, they're a completely different person to the one that arrived. And that, to me, it's a challenge to me, is that some of these guys that come in, they're very quiet, shy, withdrawn. I make it a personal challenge to make sure that they're with me 3, 4, 5 years. The person that arrived is a completely different person that left. And I take it personally if I haven't done it right. But it's all about routine, making sure that they do what they need to do, because in turn, you're getting the right job out of them, because ultimately that's what they're here for, to do a job, get paid, go home.
You can't moan if you haven't train them and get them up to speed. And, you know, I see a lot of the time on Facebook groups, fish and chip shop Facebook groups, and they're like, oh, a staff member came in, didn't know how to mop. Well, how are they meant to know? Like, you know, did you expect them at home to just pick up a mop and start mopping the carpet, for example?
It's funny you should say that, because just before COVID hit, this particular girl, she was working for me in the restaurant. She'd been with me about 3 months and nobody had actually shown her the correct way. Bearing in mind, I have 30, it varies between 30 to 35 staff I have. Sometimes somebody slips through that net when I'm actually teaching them and showing them what to do. And this particular girl had slipped through my net. She ended up scalding herself because the process we have to go through, and this is realistically is for everybody, putting your chemical into your mop bucket, then you use cold water, then you use hot water, then you can start. However, she didn't do it that way. She put scalding hot water in the bucket, the handle come off and it burnt her. It created one hell of a blister, to say the least. Sued me. Fair enough. Obviously, she won. Got quite a substantial amount of money. You learn from that. So going back to the original conversation, you learn. So now there's a set of instructions of how to fill up a mop bucket and how to mop a floor so that everybody is doing exactly the same thing, and that will never happen again. If you don't put these things into place and or show these people, correct, how they're supposed to know. Even mopping, as simple as mopping a floor. These guys are coming in, especially the age 15, 16, they get everything done for them at home. They don't even know how to use a washer, some of them. The biggest thing of all that I've discovered over recent years is that they don't even know how to iron. Provide an ironing board, because they're coming in with uniforms that are still creased because they've just dragged it out the washer, and they're drying it on my radiators at work. But it's the same thing. Have you ever been shown? No, of course they haven't. So I take it as a challenge to make sure that when they come, they're taught, they learn, and they're a different person when they leave. They can wash, they can cook, they can clean, well, maybe not cook, but clean.
And they're leaving with some life skills.
You've got it in one, life skills.
You know how to mop because you've been doing it for 30 years. Whereas when you're at home and you're a teenager, you want for nothing because your parents run around after you all day. So, and actually they send them to work to get the life skills as well. Like, because you often hear parents say, oh, when you get a job, you'll find out. And I think that's actually true. We're as parents, and I'm probably going to do this one day, is we're going to send them off to learn the hard way.
Two of the girls that I've had, they went to uni in October this year. And they came home for Christmas and they came to work for me over that 2-week period. And I actually asked the question, how are you finding it? And they said, I've never eaten so many beans in my life. Obviously, they're still not cooking correctly or properly. But that's all about uni life, isn't it? That's what they do.
It is. I think Heinz bank on that, to be honest, don't they?
Yeah, they do, yeah.
Your business is quite seasonal.
Was.
Give us so let's, if we look at it pre-awards and post-awards, because obviously it might gradually go back there or it may not. But, what was it always like? Give us an example of how it always was.
We're not on the seafront. We are in the middle of a council estate in Hornsea. If you were to walk from my shop to the seafront, it'd probably take you about 7 or 8 minutes to get there. I made it a mission to make sure that we don't become seasonal, where it's all or nothing. I don't have prime position. I understood that. So I needed to make sure that when it came to the winter months, because obviously the season is March to October, and from November to the end of February is when it's quiet, I needed to make sure I filled that gap and that I could keep and retain a lot of my staff members. And I succeeded in that. Let's come back to the original conversation right at the very beginning. I didn't compromise on quality, and I certainly didn't compromise on sizes. I needed to make sure that I retained all the locals, and I get 95% of them because they know what they're getting.
In some ways, you've turned what many would have thought a negative, being in a council estate, you've turned it into a positive because you actually have all the regular trade, and then in the summer you have the bonus trade as you see it, I guess.
Yeah, that's it.
And then it's not a huge come down when the season ends. It's just back to the way it was, and that's a nice place to be also.
I mean, at the back of my mind, this wasn't business really. It was about making sure that at the end of the day, I like to go out for a meal. Same as everybody else. And I want to make sure that the food's really nice, the service is really good. And if I can do that, I'll go back and I'll return. So I use that philosophy. I am no different. I've got blood going through my veins, same as everybody else. I use that philosophy. I want to give people the best possible food I can, because it's expensive at the moment. And I also want to try and create the best possible service I can. And if I can do those two things, you've got a recipe for success. And that's exactly how I look at things. When it comes to business, I don't look at money as being my motive. Never have and I never will. I only want to make sure that my customers receive the best food and the best service I can give them. It takes care of itself. And if you're focused on number one rather than the second, you're going to do okay. It's not always about the finances. The finances will take care of themselves. You must focus on the quality. And that's exactly what I do. And that's how I built it up.
Recently, we had the Ukraine war. Well, it's still going on, but that obviously domestically raised a lot of prices. What was your thought process, your motivation haddock was going up, cod was going up, haddock was hard to get, fats were hard to get. And, so what was your motivation there? Was it throwing up prices? Was it cutting portions? Was it, or was there a different idea going through your head every day when you're talking to your teams?
It's a really good question because there's an awful lot behind the scenes that goes off when it comes to things like this. When the war started, fish and chips were relatively cheap. I remember my fish supplier, Express Fish, came in. Ray Clutterbrook came in, and he didn't tell me. He came in, sat in the restaurant, and then he rang me up the next day. Geoff, you need to put your prices up in the restaurant. They're far too cheap. Bearing in mind, this was before the awards. I've got competition from, I would probably say, one of the biggest in the country, and he's down on the seafront, has the main position. So within the town itself, fish and chips are relatively equal. And I didn't want to break that mould by saying, right, I'm going to put my prices up. Then the war hit. I had to go in with a mindset of, I will only put the prices up if I have to. I like to plan things well in advance. That means you're organised. I set about, and I've always done this, 4-year contracts for gas and electric. One of my contracts is up at the end of next month, and it's going to double overnight. I pay 16 pence a unit for electricity. This is for my restaurant. I pay 16 pence a unit for my electric. It's going to double to 32. I'm going to have to soak that up. I don't want to put my prices up. Living wage goes up £1 an hour, that's a hell of a hit, is that in one go? That is the only reason I will be putting my prices up. And I will probably only put it on the chips, not on anything else. I haven't done the sums yet, but I will. Work out how many staff I have, how many chips I can put out, and then put it up to the relevant price increase. But I don't like doing it. We all struggle. It doesn't need to. People use negative news as making more money. I don't like that, especially the money men. They only use negativity. Why? You don't need to. Why? Just because if you make yourself independent and you are a sustainable country, which we are no longer, you can manage the country's finances easily instead of outsourcing everything, importing gas. Why would you want to import gas when we've got the North Sea there? You don't need to do it. Bearing in mind I worked in the oil industry. The problem is, with the greatest of respect to this woke society that we're now living in, we're not going to get rid of gas and oil. It's until something else comes up, which is not looking likely for the next 20 years, the technology is miles behind. And until technology catches up with the gas and oil industry, we're stuck with it. Is it right? Well, who knows? Scientists are differing between climate change and through gas and oil and not. I don't have an opinion on it. Obviously, I've worked in the oil industry. I don't have an opinion on it because you've got that many different scientists fighting each other over climate change. The only thing I would say is if you stick a pipe into your car from the back of your exhaust, are you going to be able to breathe correctly? No, you're not. Well, that's the world. We're putting fumes out there. We are surrounding the planet with fumes, and eventually, what's going to happen? This is my opinion, obviously. What's going to happen? It's no different from putting a pipe in the back of your car and sitting in there.
Back to your local economy again. How did you then manage with fish prices going up as much as they did? With now you've got gas and electric prices. You mentioned the living wage in April. So at what point? What's your determinant point when you look at your GP and say, okay, we need to keep it here, we've got to put a price up? Obviously, you don't want to be expensive. Nobody does. You don't want to lose customers to any competitor. So, and you care about your customers and also volume, keeping volume trickling through, because volume is really important. How did you navigate that? Keeping the volume coming through the door, creeping those prices up a little bit without scaring anybody.
The discussion I had watching these price increases happening on a very regular basis, it was pretty much, to begin with, it was a daily increase. Different customers ringing you up saying oil's gone up, then fish has gone up, then oil's gone up again. My oil pretty much doubled overnight. I had a discussion because as much as I don't like to name drop, Ray Clutterbrook from Express Fish, we get on very well, and I use him an awful lot because he's a very intelligent guy, and I listen to what he had to say. Same as anything when it comes to discussion, you cherry pick, don't you? And you pick and choose what you want to listen to and what you want to use. And I used an awful lot of his intelligence. However, when it came to business, ultimately, I was watching other people go bust. And I thought to myself, this is going to have to be managed extremely carefully. If I can break even at the end of this, I will, and I'm still in business, I will be very happy. I didn't want to take the Michael out of my customers by increasing at such a pace that my queues started to slow down. On the contrary, it got bigger. My queues started lengthening because we were cheaper than everybody else still. And it was a good philosophy to have. Yet again, I didn't want to make it about money. I needed to make sure that we survived. People had jobs, they have bills to pay, they have mortgages to pay. I wanted to make sure that we were still operating at the end of all of this. So my price increases, albeit once a month maybe, was only in small increments, and I took a lot, or a really big hit for a lot of the time. I didn't want to make it about me. I wanted to make sure that I still had a business at the end of it for my guys. When it comes to me, loyalty is everything, and it's reciprocated. I need to make sure that loyalty works both ways. They had a job at the end of all of this, and we've come out at the other end. Something was said to me not so long ago that it was a perfect time to win the award, which it was. With my gas and electric and fish and everything else going through the roof, not necessarily my gas and electric, but everybody else's, it was just timed perfectly because business has increased 30% off the back of the award, which has helped us significantly. Whereas there's shops out there and guys out there that have actually closed the doors because they can't afford to do it. So I didn't want to make it about me. I wanted to make sure the guys still had jobs. And that's exactly how I approached it. It was the only way to do it. If I break even, fantastic.
You see a successful business as also having volume. You didn't want your queues to slow down.
No.
Because obviously a not successful business for you is having such a large square footage business with all of that equipment, all of those staff, and then serving 30% less instead of 30% more. There is one way to keep your staffing percentage down, and that's if your turnover percentage is high. That's one of the things in fish and chips that we've probably let go of somewhat, is that, to say it in a careful way, is that everyone probably thinks they deserve more, and that's probably also true. That they work hard, they're grafters, they get up every day, they're peeling spuds, doing peas. So of course they deserve more. So then they lift up the price a bit more, but actually then lifting up the price a bit more actually damages the queue. And then they lose the turnover at the end of the year. So actually, could lifting up prices too much actually have a negative effect?
We overcomplicate things, business people. I've listened. Winning this award has allowed me to soak up more knowledge than ever before, and I listen to people. I listen to business owners. They overcomplicate things. You can manage your business very easily without mentioning GDP and all the rest of it. Look at your staff. If you start messing about, increasing your prices too much, you have to you're going to lose custom, and you're going to have to lay people off. That's not what I went into business for. I went into business primarily to be successful and to create employment. I'm not in the business of laying people off. I never ever want to do that. So greed has a lot to do with it. I'm not a greedy person. I can only eat one meal at once. That's a fact. So how much money do you want? It's all about other people. Can I create jobs for other people so that they have a successful and healthy and a good lifestyle? And that it was my main priority off the back of winning this award, or even before it, not just off the back of it. I wanted to make sure that the people that work with me are happy. I've had some miserable times at work, and I didn't want that happening to others. It's not nice. I worked in the oil industry. The oil industry, and I don't want to digress, was all about money. Some of this trade is all about money. Coming back to it, you put quality out there, it don't need to make it about money. But I wanted to make sure that at the end of the day, people had a good standard of living and they enjoyed the work. And if that means me not overcomplicating business, that's what I'm doing. And I try and keep it as simple as I can without mucking about with people's livelihoods, really.
What's ever stopped you from opening other sites?
Stress. That's it. I was in the process, funnily enough. I was in the process of looking at another shop just before Christmas, and I'm never ill. I look after myself. I eat the right foods. I exercise and all the rest of it. Ended up with extremely high blood pressure, and it was all from stress. It's the silent killer, isn't it? I thought I was actually departing this earth in November. I was that ill. I've suffered with vertigo for the last 3 years, and if anybody's had it or hasn't had it, it's like having 20 pints of beer, lager, whatever you like, and getting up and having to go to work. It's not pleasant. So I was on a course of tablets at the time, and it came back. vertigo tablets, and it came back with a vengeance. And it wasn't until I took a close look at my life, at what I was doing, that I realised it was stress. Stress was killing me. And I thought, right, that's it. I'm not doing this any longer. I made a tweak to my diet. I started exercise, because this year's been mental, to say the least. I haven't exercised at all this year because I haven't had the time. I'm back exercising again. I'm eating the right foods. I won't say again. It's just less of what I was eating. And my blood pressure's dropped down. But stress is what stopped me buying another shop.
So that stopped you buying another shop. What was the motivation to buy another shop?
I have a fire in my belly I can't get rid of. It's strange. Some people have it, some people aren't. You can't put it there. It's either there or it's not. I have a burning desire to be the best I can be. And that fire in my belly, I can't extinguish it. I don't want to extinguish it because it makes me who I am. But when everybody else around me is saying, Geoff, what the hell are you doing? You don't need this. You've done very well. You don't need to be doing this. There wasn't a single person that didn't say it. I listened. I looked at what was going off with my blood pressure. Bearing in mind I'm getting old now. I'm not a spring chicken any longer. I can still do what I did 20-odd years ago, but just a little bit slower. And I listened to what everybody else was saying. And there wasn't a single person that was saying, yeah, this is a really good idea, this, Geoff. And I thought, nah, I'm listening. And I just backed out. And I thought, yet again, one meal at a time. That's all I can eat. You can have all the money in the world, but if you haven't got your health, what's the point? So I just listened to the guys. I didn't need to listen to them anyway. My body was telling me, just don't do it. You don't need to do it.
That burning desire, is that sort of like what motivates you every day to make sure the product's as good as it is, the staff are as happy as they are? Obviously, that equates to customer satisfaction.
It's everything, all in a nutshell. Without that desire,
if you won't scratch that itch now, you've decided your body won't let you, the people around you won't let you, how do you then pull all that energy back into Whiteheads then?
Obviously, you've heard it all before. Fail to plan to fail. We've all heard it. I just plan things as carefully as I can. I don't react to anything. I think about things first, and then I react. I don't just react just for the sake of reacting. Everything I do is all about long term. It's never short term. Not in this industry. You always think about long term. That desire I have will never leave me. I just want to be, when I'm on my deathbed, I don't want any regrets. None. I want to be able to turn around and say, I've done what I've reached the peak, I've done what I've needed to do, and I've been as successful as I could be in business. Don't want any regrets. And that fire in my belly, it's just very difficult to get rid of. I don't want to get rid of it. It's what makes me who I am. If for people in business that don't have it, I can't comprehend how they do what they do. Because I've had it since I was a child. I don't know any other way. There's still something there's an itch I need to scratch, and I can't tell you what it is. Do I want another business? Yeah, I do. However, whether it be in this industry or another, why am I doing it? I just can't get rid of that fire. That's as simple as I can make it for you. You've either got it or you haven't, and I can't scratch that itch, and there's something out there that I need to be doing to be able to say, right, enough's enough now. And I haven't found it yet. I thought it was having another shop, but clearly not. That was a little bit too stressful.
So tell me about how you've been investing in Whiteheads recently, because you've chosen the winning year to do it rather than...
You're wrong.
A lot of major investments in the winning years.
Yes, there you go. I constantly, every single year, I'm always doing something. Yeah. If you don't do something year on year on year on year, you find... And I don't want to name drop because it's not fair, that a particular person or shop that won it a few years ago, they had to invest an awful lot of money in a very short space of time. And it made them ill. I didn't want to go down, yet again, I'm learning and I'm listening. This is in the past. And I didn't want to go down that avenue. I don't owe anything on my business. I own it outright. I've not owed anything on it for years and years and years through planning, paying it off as quickly as I could. But in the meantime, constantly update. I'm not a person that is fixated on money. My fixation is having the best equipment that I can have, which makes life easier for my guys, makes life easier for me. And I don't just do it willy-nilly. I do it constantly, year on year on year. However, I don't know if you can hear in the background occasionally, there's saws going off. We're shut now for the next 9 days. This is part 2 of 2 for a refurb. I had a gluten-free range fitted in our back of our premises specifically because gluten-free is very, very big now. And I didn't want to... I wanted to go with the times because it's getting much bigger. I've gone up to, rather than having a single pan range or just a single pan to do gluten-free, I've gone up to a 2-pan range just specifically for gluten-free in a separate room, because obviously we know about contamination, in a separate room with the best equipment I could use. I've changed out the storeroom. I had ceilings, floors, best stainless steel shelving that I could get in. I've just made life easier for the guys for part 1 of this refit, which we didn't need to close for. And I've just brought in another. So I used Karemco in the back, which I know the guys very well. And I wanted to share this money out. Everything we've earned this year, I've just ploughed back in. I've used Karemco for the back and Florigo for the front. I wanted to use Karemco, having visited their factory, and it blew me away what I saw. Their kitchen equipment and the ranges were just on another level. So I've refurbed all the back to make life easier. Florigo are now doing the range for the takeaway, and obviously we use it for the restaurant as well, but predominantly it's for the takeaway. I've invested $225,000 in this in a very short space of time because it was the right thing to do. Money, as I'll say, I keep saying it, money does not float my boat. I'm not interested in it. It's just a byproduct of being successful. Yes, taxman comes into it. Yes, I don't want to pay him if I can help it. So let's get it the best state-of-the-art equipment I can have to make my life easier and to make my guys' lives easier. I will always keep updating. I have a forklift. We buy oil in bulk. That forklift is now coming towards the end of its life. I will upgrade that at the end of this year. I continuously upgrade things because I want to. That's the bottom line. If you keep updating and upgrading, your business should theoretically carry on at a rate of knots that's suitable for you. Theoretically, it doesn't always work like that, obviously, but for me it does. And I want to give the customers the best I can give them as well. Because at the end of the day, if you've got a range that doesn't do what it's supposed to do, you're not going to get a very good product. That's a fact. And it's going to cost you a lot more in gas and a lot more in electricity. I swapped my range out years and years and years ago from an old Bateman range to a Huigo, which was great for the time. Then I swapped the Huigo range out for a Florigo, and the gas consumption from high efficiency to a non-high efficiency range, it was just tremendous. I couldn't believe how much money I was saving. It's probably, and it with oil as well, because we had the filtration fitted. Between the filtration and the gas, I was probably saving £1,000 a month at the time. That's a lot of money. So I bought it outright anyway, but if I'd got it on finance, it paid for itself. Straight away, paid for itself. £1,000 a month finished. Technology, always keep up to date with things now. I never fall behind. I've had my till system in for the last 3 years, changed it out during COVID. I would think next year all my tills will be gone and I'll update them again. After that, it'll be my screens and so on and so forth. I'm constantly upgrading because I want to, and it makes my life a lot easier because at the end of the day, who wants stress? And because it's easier for the guys. That's it. I don't have a philosophy other than the fact that I want an easy life.
It's also going to benefit you investing this sort of money in your business, or constantly investing this sort of money in your business, because it does help you claim back on your tax and your VAT, but it also shows staff. It also shows staff that it's somewhere that is constantly evolving. It's not just a dead end job anywhere. I don't want to say, I hate it when people say dead end job at the chippy, but I mean a dead end job anywhere, because you are constantly evolving.
Customers, I'm going to use this as an example. Customers, with the greatest of respect to the public, they are only loyal to you if that previous meal they have had is as good as the one they're having. You're constantly going to make sure, be on your toes to make sure that the meal they're just about to eat is as good as the last one they've had. If it's not, they'll go. You need to make sure that the equipment you are using will generate a quality product. Old equipment will fail. You cannot possibly, if you do not keep up to date with things, you cannot possibly create the same meal year on year on year on year, which is what I want to do. When I This is now my third Florigo for my takeaway in 13 years. My first one, I took it out after 4 years. Not because I wanted to, but because I'd had a refurb. I refurbed the entire takeaway. So I thought, if I'm going to refurb the takeaway, I may as well put a new range in. That range was shipped off to Lithuania, funnily enough. So I had that range for 4 years. Heavy investment, 72,000 after 4 years. I then brought the one in that I've just taken out. That lasted 8 years. Only 8. We're very, very busy. I want to make sure that the equipment I'm using is going to last within reason. Although there's no moving parts on a range, you've still got wear and tear, expansion and contraction of the pans, etc. Wearing down through heat of all your electronics. You need to make sure that you are on it, up to date, so that you're creating a product that lasts not just for the next 2, 3, 4 years, but for the next 15, 20, 25 years. And it's the same every single time you visit. And you can only do that by keeping up to date with ranges, computers, etc., etc., etc. And that's all I do. I just keep changing them out. Not just because I want to, because I need to. It's back to that same old fire in my belly. I need to make sure that I succeed, and this is just part of me, and this is the way I do things. Some people may disagree with me, I'm sure they will, but it's just how I am. Not everybody's the same.
A frying range in your business, the same as having a Formula One car and a Formula One team.
Yep.
It's not the best analogy, but I think it's close.
No, it's a great analogy. Look how they change every single season. You've got it in one.
If they can gain a second here, a second in Formula One is like a year in normal life. So, but if you can serve more fish and chips at the same quality level or better than the previous frying range, whilst using similar gas and electric and similar staffing, then surely it's got to be worth investing in.
Do you know what? What a fantastic analogy. It's just like Formula One. Look how they change year on year. You'll come to the end of a season when it comes to Formula One, and just for argument's sake, you've got Lewis Hamilton. Look how the demise of Lewis Hamilton overnight, because Red Bull have overtaken him, because they were constantly upgrading things and changing things. And then when you come to the next season, you're back up again. And that's how I look at it. That's a great analogy, that. I'll give yourself a pat on the back.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I will do. Yeah, but my dad, in some ways, was quite similar to you. Like every 3-4 years, he'd have a refit. Maybe a lot more. I think every 3-4 years, it was probably something visual. So customers thought, but maybe every 6-7 years, it'd be back end operational. And I think a lot of people used to say, "Oh, you're crazy. Peter's crazy. Why is he spending all this money when all he could be doing is just putting money in his pocket?" I know a lot of operators like that are constantly evolving their business. It's never stopping. Regardless of what frying range, regardless of what equipment, they are constantly evolving their business. I think sometimes where the mistakes you see is where businesses become immovable objects, where they don't want to change, where they just think, well, I've been doing this for 30 years and why should I change? And I think, well, everything around you is moving. So if you're not moving, you're moving backwards.
That sort of thinking is archaic. You more than likely will end up shutting your doors thinking like that.
Yeah.
You've got it on the button there. The customers are always looking for something changing.
Yeah.
You can't just sit on your laurels and think, I'm doing really well here. You need to start thinking in the next, like I said to you, the 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the line.
Well, even if customers, because customers don't really, I think sometimes we can probably give far too much credit to customers. I'll tell you why, just for a moment on the flip side. So if you look at someone like Steve Jobs, who created Apple, he used to say, people don't know what they want until they see it. And that means you've got to be the visionary. You, as in, and I think sometimes when I see fish and chip shops or businesses that I know of, and they'll say on Facebook to their customers, "Do you think we should do this? Or what do you think we should do?" And they're just going to tell you what they want. They're not giving you a great idea. It's not a revelation. So if you sell great fish and chips and you say, "Oh, what could we do?" They'd say pizza, because that's what they want on a Tuesday night.
No.
And whereas you've got to be the visionary in your business, and you can't rely on customers to tell you what that is. And Henry Ford used to say, if it was up to customers back then, when he brought out the Ford Model T, if he asked customers what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse.
Yeah.
But, he came out with a car, and I think sometimes we do give customers far too much credit for the visionary's innovation. You're the visionary in your
Agreed.
business. You've got to do something, even if they don't know. And I remember when I used to enter the awards before I made the full-time switch to working in this business or founding this business. I remember customers used to mark us down on the old award sheets. And I said to one customer, "You come in every week. Why would you mark us down?" And he pulls me to one side and he goes, "Son, if I give you top marks and you go and win this competition, you're going to put up all your prices." And I thought to myself, he's probably right, in fairness. But the point is, you can't, a customer's motivation is different to yours.
I heard that an awful lot, from my customers. "Oh, now you've won, I suppose your prices are going up." No, I'm not. No, I can't do that. You're loyal to me. I will stay loyal to you by not increasing. There's no point in that. Is that good business or is it bad business? Well, that's up for debate, isn't it? At the end of the day, I don't want to upset my customers and vice versa.
You want to grow customers and you want to keep people coming through that door. Well, post awards, you're coming close to giving the trophy back. How do you think? Is it going to be motivating staff? Do you think that it's just business as usual, the way it's always been? Or do you think that you're going to re-enter awards or do other things?
I was actually asked if I would judge this year, and I agreed to do it. However, back to the fire in my belly, I'm passionate about the environment and trying to take care of the environment. So I've entered the Sustainability and Environmental Award this year, which meant I couldn't judge for obvious reasons. Which that's fine. I'll do it next year instead. But when it came to the Environment and Sustainability Award, I want to do the best I can, because we do things that a lot of other shops don't do. I'm in the process of actually, at the moment, which I got an email late last night, I'm in the process of putting in plans to have wind turbines put on my roof at work. I went to Holland in July last year and I visited the factory where they do it. Wind tulip turbines is what they're called. And I visited the factory and it impressed me. And obviously knowing full well that my gas and electric bills are going to be up for renewal come October and March, I wanted to try and reduce the energy consumption and put a little bit back in so they're not as excessive, albeit I do have solar panels as well. So I was quite passionate about entering the awards again. It is going to be the last time, and I'm not going to be doing it again after this because the pressure that goes with it is quite substantial. So it's all right, people saying, "Oh, he's won this award, this, that, and the other," but there's an awful lot behind the scenes stress that these guys don't see. I'm doing a Zoom meeting next week, funnily enough, with the top 10, and this is the one thing I'm going to be discussing with them, just because just entering the awards alone is extremely stressful. Because you want to up your game and you have to up your game, which in turn is then put onto the staff, and it puts a lot of pressure on them. And you're asking a lot from these guys. So post winning, nothing's going to change. I'm going to leave. I don't need to change anything. There's nothing broken. All I expect from my guys is that if the product isn't right, they don't sell it, and that the customer service is where it needs to be at. They have a rigorous routine that they have to stick to in the nicest possible way, and nothing will change. I still want to do what I need to do for the industry. I have more than enough knowledge to offer anybody for advice. If anything, I want to do more post award.
More in a different way.
Yes, I want to. I've got knowledge beyond this year alone. I've learned more this year about this industry than I've in the last 10. By getting out there, and I want to offer that knowledge to people.
So if you could give one piece of advice to someone listening to this, let's say they've just started, or they're in a rut, or they're not feeling great, or they might be going through a tough time, what advice would you give them, like based on what we've been I guess the answers are all in this podcast anyway, to be honest. But
yes, they are.
Yeah. But is there anything specific, would you say?
Yeah, I'm going to cast my mind back to 1999. 98. I started this business with my parents in I say parents, my mother, me and my mother, but she was my business partner. We started this business in 97, and there was an overlap from me working on the oil rigs to which I didn't actually finish until July. We bought the business in the March of 97, and we actually started to pay our first VAT bill in January of 98. And I had to pay it personally because the business couldn't afford it. And I remember thinking, if this continues, we're going to go bust. So I ended up paying it myself. And that was the moment I realised, I knew it anyway, but it was yet again a light bulb moment. Do not compromise on quality. If you don't compromise on quality, it will come, but you have to be patient. This industry is not about short-term thinking.
Many others would have made the decision there. They would have walked through the stock room and said, well, this dripping we buy, we can get a cheaper one. Oh, this packaging we buy, we can get a cheaper one. Oh, and whereas you took the decision to say, no, it's going to be harder. It's going to take longer. It's probably going to cause me a bit more stress in the short term.
Which it did.
It's going to be a stress on my pocket, but I'm going to stick to buying the best because I know that this is going to keep customers coming back through the door.
I never wavered, ever. That was from that moment of thinking, how am I going to get out of this? From that moment I paid that VAT bill out of my own pocket, I thought to myself, I cannot produce substandard food. It has to be the best. Here's an example for you. Fish. Over the years, I've paid £10, £15 a box more than everybody else because there was a certain brand I wanted. When everybody else was, just for argument's sake, when everybody else was paying £100 a box, I was paying £115 because I wanted that product. And they're all saying, you should go out searching for it. Well, number one, if I start searching for other products, I'm coming away from what I believe in. I don't want to do that. It creates more stress than it's worth. Because ultimately, when you are in business, yes, you've got to make money, but why would you create more stress for yourself? So I stick to certain products. I found it. I went out. I sourced it. You have a good business person will go out and source their own product. If you don't, you're not worth your salt. You must. From potatoes to fish. I went to Iceland, and I wanted to see what they did. I wanted to see how they did it, and I wanted to see it firsthand. I went to Iceland and I sourced it that way. My potatoes don't waver. I went to the farm. I see the potatoes from being sown to watered to lifted. I'm there every step of the way because I want to see what it's all about so that I can then translate that to my customers. And in turn, footfall increases because you're getting the best product you can get. And it all stems back to January 1998. Do not waver. Boxes. I look around the town where I am. I'm the only one with my own label boxes. The price is doubled. It's £30, for example. It was £15, it's now £30 for 100 boxes. Can I then go, just because we've won the award, I can't do it anymore. You're not allowed to enter again. Just because we've won that award, shall I go and get those biodegradable boxes just to keep the price down? I think they're about £13, £14. I shouldn't guess, but that's what I think they are. And I think they're for about 500. Why would I go down to that just for the sake of it? I want to keep my product where it needs to be at, and same for my packaging. Because ultimately, when you've got your own label boxes, you go around the town and you'll see them. That's great advertising. And you think you're paying for something that's overpriced. You're not. People can walk around the town and say, oh, they're from Whiteheads. They're Whiteheads boxes. Whereas if there's no label on it, where's it come from? You have no idea. It's free advertising without even realising. But I didn't want to compromise, and I never will. And it all stemmed back to 98. Don't compromise on your quality. Don't compromise on the product you are serving. And if you can, and you can introduce packaging, your own label packaging, get it done. But yeah, the question you've just asked, it all stems from 1998, having to pay the dreaded VAT.
So I'm glad that you've mentioned VAT, because it segues us into what you mentioned to me the other week on the phone. And it was that you thought the biggest threats to the industry were VAT, energy prices, And I think that's about it, actually. I think you might have mentioned the wage increase in April as well, but I think we have sort of touched on that anyway. I'd like you to explain to me, and I'm going to put my devil's advocate hat on a little bit here. So I want you to explain to me what the issue is with VAT.
When it comes to VAT, as humans are, inevitably, there's things we need. Basic needs. A roof over our head, clothes on our back, and food to eat. The food we eat to keep cost down. Why? Bearing in mind it's a basic need. All right, this industry is classed as a luxury food. Irrespective of whether it's a luxury food or not, why are you taxing a basic need? There's a lot of arguments for this, but it's a basic need. We all have to eat. Why are you taxing it? You shouldn't be doing that. That aside, while we were in the EU, VAT was at 17.5%, and they only increased VAT because we're in Europe, and they increased it to 20% to be in line with Europe. We're no longer in Europe, so why is it not going back down to 17.5%? That's a start. According to Reform UK, if they get in, they're going to put it down to 18%. We'll wait and see.
Well, they're never getting in. We're in a two-party country, essentially. So
unfortunately, yeah. This establishment needs shaking up, just like Donald. I'm not a Donald Trump fan, but he's shaking it up, and that's why they're giving him grief. The establishment is rotten to the core.
Yeah, they do. You wouldn't have to apologise if you're a fan of any political party. Like, this is a fish and chip hospitality podcast. And I'm really not fussed what people believe in. You could believe in, communism for all I care. But I think I'm not like it would work running a business though. But the point being is that, any party, even the best part, let's say even the two main parties promise stuff that never comes true. So imagine how little someone as insignificant as Reform Party or the Greens, like what they can say, Lib Dems, like they can say all the things they want to say, and actually nothing ever has to come true. So I think the point about EU, for example, from what I understand, when they were talking about Brexit, they said we would have the freedom to change VAT if we wanted to. And that's still true. I don't think the political will is there to change VAT.
Well, no, because they're earning a lot of money out of it. That's why.
Exactly. I've got the notes here somewhere. VAT this year is expected to raise 162 billion for the UK.
Wow.
That's not all hospitality, obviously.
No.
I understand your point of why tax a basic need. I get it completely. However, being devil's advocate here, so anyone listening to this isn't Stelios, this is someone else like Jeremy Paxman, let's say, which I always joke about. So is buying fish and chips a basic need? Is going to a restaurant or a takeaway a basic need? It probably, if we're honest with ourselves, as much as we're all in the fish and chip industry, and as Stelios speaking, as the owner of Ceres, I wish everyone would go to a fish and chip shop because that would benefit me greatly. But if we're being completely honest, I don't think going to a restaurant or a fish and chip shop or a burger place is a basic need. When people are ordering, going to Five Guys and getting a burger for like 18 quid with fries, or going to McDonald's and paying 9 quid with fries, when you could make a burger at home for £2.50, that's the basic need. And I think from the government's point of view, I would imagine they'd look at that and say, all the countries in Europe that always get mentioned for having lower hospitality rates, they also have VAT on food ingredients.
Interesting.
France, I'll run this off actually. So France 10%, Germany 19%, Finland 14%, Italy 10%, Ireland 13.5%, Spain 10%. Half of those countries on there, that's the hospitality VAT rates. Half of those, that lower rate is also the rate for buying a chicken from the supermarket or milk. Yep. Now imagine going to the supermarket with your wife and buying the groceries, and at the end looking at the bill and 10-15% of that bill went to hate. We don't have that in the UK. So I think...
No, and quite right as well.
And quite right. Yeah, quite right. What I'd like to ask you is, what do you think an alternative system looks like? I was born in 1984.
I just left school then.
So VAT for the last 32 years has been 17.5% or 20%. It's never really gone off the rails for a long time, well, except for COVID, obviously, which was a an international emergency and they needed to spark that economy. Do you think if it went back to 17.5%, would that be worth celebrating?
You've just said something there that alarm bells rang immediately, right? So this is as simple as I can make it.
Yeah.
The reduced VAT to get the economy back on track.
Yeah.
Hello, reduced VAT. I went around, like I said to you, I went to Rotherham just before Christmas, and I went to have a look around all where I used to hang around, and I went into the town centre. I've never seen so many shops shut. Between VAT, rent and rates, the place is a ghost town, and I'm sure that's reciprocated throughout the entire country. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to work out that if you reduce things, your economy will be back on track. I'm no politician. I have no intentions to be one.
Oh, that's a shame.
But it doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand this.
That was a global pandemic, and you can't run a country like that. And a lot of fiscal responsibility went out the window because they needed to keep people in jobs, like the furlough scheme and all of this. Like, that we're all going to be paying for that for a really long time.
Well, we shouldn't be.
Well, we will
and
be.
I'll tell you why. I didn't. I had a general idea when this happened, and I put the guys on furlough. At the time, obviously, with it being new, you didn't realise what was happening, but I had a general idea. Right, so furlough. They gave you the money to pay the guys. They paid tax and national insurance on that. I paid tax and national insurance on that. At the end of the year, that furlough money was classed as an income. I had to pay tax again on that. So you've got 3 lots of tax for money that they've given you. Are you telling me they haven't paid this back by now?
You had to pay tax on the furlough, or you had to pay tax on the grants that were given?
No, you had to pay tax on the furlough. It was classed as an income. And that's what people didn't understand. I had a general idea anyway. I spoke to the accountant about it, and I said to him, you see this money they're giving us, it's not free, is it? And he went, no, you'll end up paying tax on it.
So back to the question, though, what does an alternative look like? You say lower, what's lower?
15%.
So at 15%, that's 5% drop. I'd guarantee you that 90% of the industry that listen to this, they would not agree with you. They would say that's not enough. What would you say to that?
That's you asked for a compromise. That's a compromise. And I'm not going to... It's a start as well. Realistically, you're probably looking at 10%, but it's a start, 15. You're not going to do 5% in one go if they do reduce it anyway. They may, if they do decide, which I can't see it, but if they do decide to reduce it, they may start at 18%. Then increments of 1.5%, maybe 2% at a time, but I can't see it. A 10% is what the industry would require.
So on Twitter, I follow a few groups that are advocating for lower VAT in hospitality. And one question that constantly gets asked to all of these restaurateurs, chefs and groups from people that follow them is, would you drop the rate to customers or would you keep the extra margin? Now, So you've said yes, you'll drop it. However,
the reason being, when VAT was put to 20%, I thought I'd calculated my prices correctly, and I hadn't. It was my error. I had an email from a customer saying, "What the hell are you doing? I've just been in, bought fish and chips, radi, and you've put it up 10%, not 2.5%." Obviously, it was 17.5% at the time. It went up to 20%, and I didn't. It was an error on my behalf, and I checked the price, and I thought, yeah, he's absolutely 100% correct. Dropped it back to 2.5%, which was fair. If VAT is reduced, I will reduce to whatever percentage it would be. It's not about.
So you drop it, but a lot of those restaurateurs and chefs said no, we wouldn't drop it.
No, they won't. No,
so
they won't. I agree with you.
Can you see from the government's point of view then how dropping VAT, which is a consumer tax, not a business tax, and I think we need to clarify that because there is a lot of confusion around VAT, and I'd like to discuss, you've been in the industry for a while, like where that's probably come from, why we always think of it as a tax on the owner of the business. For example, there was a massive campaign to drop, and I think it was right, to be fair, women's Tampax, sanitary towels, sanitary products, a big campaign to drop those to zero VAT. That happened.
Basic need.
However, the price never got changed to consumers.
Well, that's corporate greed for you.
Yeah, and then there's now another campaign to drop VAT on sun lotion. It looks like they won't pass it on either, that retailers will just keep that extra margin. So, yeah, it is corporate greed or business greed.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
The problem is, if restaurateurs and all these guys say, no, we need this to survive, well, VAT isn't the right mechanism to give people the will to survive in business, is it?
It's a very slippery slope when it comes to VAT. No question about it. Regardless of what is suggested, you're always going to get somebody that disagrees. As you've already stated, the argument, not the argument, but the biggest thing of all is that if VAT was reduced, are you going to reduce your prices? And unfortunately, and inherently, humans are greedy. That's a fact. That's not my opinion. It's a fact. We're greedy. Hence the reason why the corporate side of the corporate companies don't reduce it. It's greed.
Well, it's not even corporate companies. Over COVID, how many independent businesses that had VAT at 5% and 12.5% dropped their VAT? And now you could argue that over COVID, it was extenuating circumstances. Yes. I'd get that. Like, I'd give them credit there. In the 2008 crash, when they dropped VAT, no one I know, not one person dropped VAT. No. They just took that extra. Now, all the car dealerships did. I remember all of them doing it. All the businesses did it. So corporate businesses tend to do it. I know over COVID, McDonald's and Costa, I think Costa put their prices down, actually.
Yes, they did.
But McDonald's didn't. But McDonald's did a load of special offers or something.
But then Costa reduced the amount of coffee you were getting when they did that.
Yes,
they did.
All right, there's a cost to play the long game. Yeah. So I feel like VAT, I understand completely why it's a contentious issue, completely. But I'd like to probably understand more about why we all treat VAT like a business tax rather than a consumer tax.
Yeah, well, I'm when you were saying I do not include mine on my weekly spreadsheet. I don't do it. I look at VAT. It does not belong to me. That's the biggest thing of all. When people see the top line, the cashing up at the end of the day, and there's an awful lot of businesses out there that think, oh, look at how much money we're earning. And they then neglect the VAT on this. I do not. When I'm looking and I'm cashing up, I don't look at it as being my money. Never have. VAT is the single biggest downfall of, especially in this sector, of businesses closing. Why? Because they include it. That's why.
Elaborate on that a little bit. How link it all together? Why exactly? What is that? What are they doing wrong, do you think?
Well, some people overstretch themselves by going down the route. Just for argument's sake, I'm setting up a business. I'm new to the trade. And you neglect to think about the VAT right from the very beginning, which I did when I first started. Never even give it a thought because I was new to the trade. We ended up with X, Y, and Z to pay for. They're your primary bills that I had to pay. So I had loans to pay for, I had a range to pay for, I had a car to pay for, I had this to pay for. VAT wasn't even in the equation. Is that because we've not been taught? Have we not spoken about this? That's another debate to be had. I think ultimately we see the top line when you're cashing up, not all, but a lot. Look at that top line and think, yep, that's mine. No, it does. Don't look at that money as being yours. Look at that money as being a means to a source to pay your invoices and your VAT and tax. No other way. As soon as you look at it from a different angle that money's mine, you're in for a shock. Don't. Always try and keep it out of your mind that money does not belong to you. It belongs to the government.
Just thinking about what you said. So do you think that the VAT problem to some degree is how people handle it fiscally? Like, they've included it in their thing, and then they've included it in their, let's say, their finances, and then they think of it as theirs. And at the end of the, let's say, 2.5 months later, they're thinking, oh my God, I've got to scramble because I got a VAT bill. And it's not a bill. It's just, it is what it is. What's your thoughts on that?
I think a lot of this is down to education. When I first started in business back in 97, VAT was not even conceived. You just don't think about VAT. Education, I knew nothing about business. And I mean nothing. I went in blind. You can't do that. Everything we do is about education. Going on to education, whether or not the they have the training school to the NFFF, obviously. Whether or not they include this in their training course, I don't know. But I am there on Monday. I am actually going to mention this to them.
I was told they do. From somebody that was there over the last 10 years,
Right,
and
okay.
someone was there before that. I was told that apparently they tell everybody, be aware, this is how you handle it, this is how you work with it. So it's not a complete surprise.
VAT is a massive surprise to people that have never been in business before. Anybody that approaches me, whether it be friends who have set up businesses, the one thing I say to them is, do not include your VAT in your takings top line. It does not belong to you. And if you view it in that sense, you will be okay. Get a separate bank account. Every time you have takings, put that into the account, whether it be daily, weekly, monthly. That's your decision. But you cannot look at it as being your money. It does not belong to you. You are a paid tax collector. And if you view it in that sense, theoretically, you should be okay.
But if you treat it the way you just did, you're always going to be left with a few pennies at the end of that quarter as well, because obviously by the time you do your reclaim, and actually it just becomes another transaction rather than scrambling around, panicking that you can't pay.
You see, the other thing about this is that obviously we mingle with friends, customers, so on and so forth. The friends are customers. You're out in, just for argument's sake, you're out in the pub, you're having a conversation, and this is what transpires. Oh, you were really busy today. I saw the queuing out the shop. They don't understand that 20% of that queue is VAT. So you can get caught up in a mindset of, actually, we've been really busy. And then they neglect the 20%. It's a really easy trap to fall into. That is just the amount of conversations I've had about with people about this. They forget, and you can't afford to.
I visit a lot of fish and chip shops, as you'd imagine, and not many I walk into have on the menu board that there is 20% standard rated VAT. No one puts it on the receipts, really. And you think, and they used to. This was a very normal thing. And I think as we've sort of rebranded shops and, put new menu boards up, we've removed it and thought, nobody needs to know about that. And it's those exact same people that also complain that their customers don't know what VAT is.
It's not like that in America.
No, and this is the difference. In America, customers know exactly what the sales tax is, and but I do think there is a difference in the fact that the European Union and the British have essentially told you to make it inclusive, because that makes it your problem all of a sudden. Whereas if it was exclusive, like in America, if it goes up by a percentage, people quit for the day and go kicking off somewhere outside the local federal building or so on. So I think that's the difference. Like, so when you fold it into a price, you can make it the business owner's problem. And I guess that's where some of this resentment also comes from. So, but going back to VAT change, I think as long as the government probably see that these are problems that aren't necessarily their own, why would they bend over backwards to help?
It's funny, isn't it? When there was a war on, it was fish and chips that was never rationed, and then all of a sudden, because it suits, it becomes a luxury.
Well, that is sort of true.
Yeah. Well, it is, but it was still. The point I'm making is. The point I'm making is it was a staple. It became part of a staple diet. So how can it then become a luxury?
Well, I guess because you can cook at home. I think it always goes back to people can cook at home. And although fish and chips itself wasn't rationed, the ingredients were hard to get and the fuel was pretty hard to get. And that was pretty much rationed too, which is why a lot of the 40,000 chip shops in the 1940s opened probably 2 days a week between them. So I do think it's a nice story, and I'm not trying to poo-poo it. But I just think, how would you then choose? Where do you choose what is a luxury? So, for example,
it's a minefield, isn't it? At the end of the day,
Exactly. And I think this is what the government is up against, because where do you draw the line? If it's not a luxury, then let's assume it's not a luxury to eat fish and chips, and then it's also not a luxury to eat McDonald's. Then you're literally, if we dropped it to 10% VAT, you're essentially giving 10% back to a multinational corporation.
Just to throw the cat amongst the pigeons, here's something else for you. And I will use Greggs as an example. You go in, you get a sausage roll. 9 times out of 10, they're hot, but yet they're not, because they're classed as a cold food. They don't get taxed on it. So
they're classed as an ambient food, but at the same time, and I'm not defending Greggs here, I just want to make sure of that, because I do think that it would be better if it was a clearer policy. But I went to a Greggs the other day to get a sausage roll for my son, actually, and I got a pizza slice for him, so I didn't know which he'd prefer. And I said to the girl, "Can you warm up the pizza slice?" And she said no.
No, because it's taxable.
And I was like, "I'm happy to pay extra. I'll pay the extra, because I know obviously it's vatable." And she said, "We can't do it because it creates complications. And if we create complications," she goes, "we might not charge you the right price, and it won't pass the tax along." So I do think they follow the law to the letter.
You see, you asked me earlier, what could the answer be? The answer could be, even if it's ambient food, because it's still a luxury, why can't, if they tax that ambient food, they could reduce it, and you've then got a happy medium then, haven't you?
That sounds like a decent solution. I think that I'd be up for that. If somebody campaigned for all out-of-home food, so anything you could easily make at home but don't, whether it's hot or cold, even if it's a pot of jelly that is ready to eat, that's a luxury in my view. And I know when we say luxury, I don't mean it's luxurious. So I think that would probably be a solution if they then said, we're widening the VAT pool so we can drop it 5% or 10%. Yeah. That would also have a lot of resistance. I'd imagine all of the red top newspapers screaming from the rooftops. And I guess, and whatever we say...
Because they don't want to pay VAT, do they?
Because they don't want to pay VAT.
Who wants to pay VAT? Of course they would.
Well, I think the truth is, it wasn't Greggs that kicked off all those years ago. So do you remember the whole media story a few years ago? It wasn't actually Greggs saying, keep your hands off our pasty. It was the Sun newspaper.
Okay.
I know Greggs get a lot of credit for that, but it had nothing to do with Greggs. It was the Sun. And Greggs caught up with it and tried to make it a media story. But really, it was the newspaper.
I didn't know that. That's quite interesting. Didn't know that.
And it's always those red tops that apparently are, trying to look after the poorer folk, But the truth is, I think that what you've just suggested, I actually like that policy. If they said it, that makes it really clear. Can you make it at home? Yes, but you choose not to. No. Okay, there's VAT on that. There you go. Yeah. It's a very simple answer. And I think what that also does, if you look at it from
it is.
From a health point of view, what you're also saying to people is that food that you make at home is now a lot cheaper, because to buy anything pre-made has a 20% tax on it. So it could make people healthier, which isn't a bad thing either.
Yeah, it could. Yeah, that could be the answer towards obesity, because obviously there's a lot. They put the sugar tax on, didn't they?
Yeah, well, at least one answer. Yeah,
but if you did it, made it a level playing field for foods that aren't cooked at home, i.e. fish and chips, and your Greggs for ambient temperature foods. If you made it a level playing field, surely you're going to create more VAT. Surely.
Oh, exactly that. Exactly. I just can't see a way where that's not a good policy. But who's got the stomach politically to do it?
Oh yeah. I'd love to say me, but
I do think if NFFF, UK Hospitality, all of these guys, I understand that they're pushing this because their members want it, but I don't think it's the answer. I'm not an economist. I'm not that smart. I just read a lot and I listen to people. Telling the government, take less from us, isn't going to work unless you can say to them, take some off them too.
Yep.
And then you've got more customers.
Yes, I know.
You get more income, shall we say.
Yeah.
Then they might be able to listen, because they don't want tax receipts to be down. And also, is it a good use of taxpayer money, given what's perceived a 10% discount to those people that eat out. Like, I don't know. So it's a real tough one. It really is.
Yeah, I don't think there is. It's going to take an awful lot of thinking and some very intelligent minds out there to come up with an answer for this. Because ultimately, they're not going to reduce VAT, whether we want it to be reduced or not. They're not going to do it. So something else needs to be for us to get it reduced. We need to introduce something else into the mix, and that's just one suggestion. Is to, if you're going to tax ambient food, you can then reduce it because they need the income ultimately.
That's my thought. But no, it's been really interesting talking to you today, Geoff.
Definitely.
And I do need to pop up and see you at some point. And I'm sorry I put it off.
It's been a pleasure. I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
I am sorry that we put it off as long as we did, but as you know, we had some family problems on my end. But I actually think it's been for the best because I think that a lot more has happened, and the year behind you makes more sense than talking to you 3 weeks after winning.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah, definitely. It's because you hear the same old things. What does it mean to you? It doesn't become real to you until you start getting more knowledge and information and more experience, and then you can start talking about these things. And it's been a hell of a year. I've loved every second of it, and as I've said previously, I'm going to be quite envious handing that trophy back because I've loved every minute of it. I've gained so much knowledge this year. It's been fantastic, and I would like to say one thing. I wish the next person a lot of luck. You'll need it. It's not easy. It's a lot of hard work, but you only get out what you put in. End of story. Enjoy it. Enjoy the rewards it brings, but learn along the way as well, which you will. So good luck to the next person.
I really enjoyed chatting to Geoff. What did you all think? Is it enough to make you want to invest in your business and give it a really big push? Or is it even enough to make you enter the Fish and Chip Awards? We'd like to know what you think. I love getting emails from everybody and seeing comments on our website about the podcasts and the articles, so keep them coming. We love the feedback. Remember, if you want to increase your batter adhesion, increase flavour, make the switch to our Predus number 1 or Predus number 2. The benefits include better batter pickup, increased oil life, boosting flavour and giving customers more flavour so they keep coming back. Remember, like all our products from Ceres.shop, it all comes with free delivery. We love supporting your business with our products, but we also love bringing you the news affecting the hospitality industry. Uploaded today, McDonald's targets unprecedented growth, 10,000 new stores by 2027. A manslaughter investigation launched after an allergic woman dies from a vegan tiramisu made with milk. The Flatiron Steakhouse carving a path to nationwide growth, and revitalising fast food, how Burger King is flipping the script with Reclaim the Flame. If you want to keep in the loop and see what we're doing at Ceres, you should be following us on social media. But to get any offers and the news first, you should be on our mailing list to get all the news delivered to your inbox, and the link is going to be in the episode show notes. Be sure to share this podcast with your friends and on social media, and if you like this episode, chances are your friends will like it too.